Shalom, everybody. Today we'll start the laws of washing our hands for the morning prayer for women. And we already said that we already learned all of those laws for men, and there aren't many differences. So we'll just give an introduction because I think that we didn't give this introduction before. So if you remember, there were two reasons why we say Shacharis, Mincha, and Maariv. One was for corresponding to our three forefathers who established each one in his time, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in that order. But the other one was to be equivalent to the Tamid, the compulsory, everlasting, or eternal daily sacrifice of a sheep in the morning and a sheep in the afternoon. That never stopped until the 17th of Tammuz. One of the reasons is why we do that. And then for the evening one, we said that it corresponds to the burning of the parts that weren't burned during the day. So, and that's why women are exempt from that because there was no correspondence to that. So Maariv should not be one of the prayers that a woman decides to pray once a day. So in the actual Torah, 10 chapters apart, first in Shemot Lamed and then in Shemot Mem, it says, "Vasita kior nechoshet," you should make a laver of copper and a stand of copper for it for washing, and place it between the tent of meeting and the altar, because when a Kohen comes into the Beit HaMikdash, they have to first stop by this sink or lever to wash, because it says, and then go to the Mizbeach to do everything. So we'll go through the Mishnah in a second, but it says, "Rachatzu Aaron v'rav menot yadeim v'et raglehem," and because the next verse also says again to do it, so that's how the rabbis learned that the Kohanim were forever forbidden to do any kind of work without this washing of the hands. It's called mechusar and so the Mishnah and Tamid, I actually only learned this now because if we remember last week, we talked about not saying hello to somebody before davening. And it says here very clearly that the Kohanim who were sleeping underneath the temple or in the temple area, it says, Higiu elu ve'elu amru shalom, hakol shalom. So that was part of the Mishnah telling us how to do it. And then it says, whoever was won the lottery to remove the ashes from the altar, v'hem amrim lo hizaher shem tiga bakli. Don't make sure that you don't touch any utensils until you wash your hands and feet from the kior. And so that was the process, and it was very early in the morning, and it's just a fascinating masechet to learn. So this is going to be Netilat Yadayim for starting to pray, etc. But of course, we also have the washing your hands for the meal. So one who prays the Amidah must cleanse herself. It is therefore a mitzvah to wash one's hands before prayer. Yesterday we saw that it's a rabbinical mitzvah. However, there is a distinction between the situation in which she knows that her hands are sullied and the normal case where she does not know whether her hands have been dirtied. For example, if one knows that her hands are dirty because she relieved herself or touched body parts that normally are covered, areas that soiled from perspiration, for example, she must wash her hands before praying. The chatchila, she should pour water over her entire hand with a vessel as one washes before a meal. However, b'diavad, if she rinses her hands with water without a vessel, she fulfills her obligation of preparing herself for prayer, because most important is that her hands are clean before she prays. So again, that will be a difference between men and women, because men are compared to the priests, but the women didn't have to do the priestly work. If there is no water nearby, she must take the trouble to walk up to the distance of a mil, which is about 3/4 of a mile. If there is no water even within a mil, or there is water, but the designated time for prayer will pass if she treks to it, she may rub her hands with sand or on her clothing in order to remove any trace of dirt from them, and then she may pray. The normally covered parts of one's body, because they contain beads of sweat, for instance, scratching one's head is considered touching a dirty place. This refers to rubbing the roots of one's hair, but if someone only touches the top of her hair, like to straighten it, that does not require washing. Concerning a woman who knows that that her hair is clean, for example, one who just recently washed her hair, in the opinion of some Achronim, she does not need to wash her hands, even if she scratches the roots of her hair. One may rely on this opinion as long as she feels that this area is clean from the washing, although when her hair is covered, sweat accumulates there faster. Concerning one who touches other normally covered parts of the body, if her body is washed clean and does not have beads of sweat on it, the Achronim disagree as to whether or not she must wash her hands, and then according to that opinion, we should not say the blessing. Um, and so, under normal circumstances, that is, when a woman did not wash her hands recently but does not remember touching something dirty or body parts that are normally covered, the poskim disagree about whether she must wash her hands before prayer. Hence, if there is water available, she should wash her hands. However, if there is no water near her, she does not need to wash her hands and may rely on the poskim who maintain that hands under normal circumstances need not be washed before prayer. To dispel uncertainty, she should preferably rub her hands on her clothing, and one who leaves the bathroom after having washed her hands and is then careful not to touch the parts of her body which are normally covered need not wash her hands again before praying. However, if she was not mindful of that, she must wash her hands if no water is available, since she is not certain that her hands are unclean. She may pray without washing. So all of that is a repetition of what we learned before, but the difference again between women and men is that because they did not participate in the Tamid offering, we are more lenient. And so when a person has a safek, not if they need to wash or not, but rather if their hands were clean. For example, we talked before about what's called a nafkamina, a difference in the situation where if somebody was wearing gloves when she was sleeping, then even if she touched different areas of the body, yadayim skanioten, then it really doesn't require washing. But if the idea is that we wash our hands in preparation of prayer, even if they're clean, then we still have to do it, and that's why there's these disagreements. And everybody should ask the rabbi what is the proper way to do so. I'll stop here and open up for questions.